All right, so in today's session, we are going to talk about how or what kinds of idioms can we use and what are the phrases that we can use in the speaking section. And using this will actually help you in the elevation of your band scores. So let's just wait for a minute or so and then we can start the session. And this is okay, thank you, Damayanti. And this is particularly, I'm talking about the speaking idioms that you can use and the phrases that you can use in the speaking section. So let's start this session. Okay, see, in the speaking section, you know that you are going to be assessed on 4 parameters, which is your fluency and coherence, your lexical resource, your grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. So let's dive into all of these rubrics one by one. So when we talk about fluency and coherence, you should be aware of the fact that fluency is basically, again, the way you are with this with the words that you use. Are you able to speak in a manner which is not very incoherent, and are you able to knit the words together? That comes under your fluency. Now, in the section where we use fluency, we of course have to connect certain words, and for that we use some phrases which are also called linking phrases. जैसे कि on the other hand हो गया, furthermore ho gaya. In addition, you can use, but I would say that these are more like written phrases. We use as well as, apart from that, we also say and in order to, let's say, include a new point. So basically, when we use these linking phrases, we can think better. We can actually organize our thoughts much more easier. And then when we include, let's say, some when the examiner will ask you some questions that, do you think, what do you think, or what is your perspective about it? So where they basically want you to introduce your own points, where they want you to introduce your own point of view, here you can use words like or phrases like, from my perspective, from my knowledge, if I'm being completely honest, or it seems to me that. So basically, here whenever they are going to ask you for your ideas, जहां पे भी वो बोलेंगे कि तुम्हारे लिए या let's say the question is, do you think that people should make friends beyond their circles? So यहाँ पे they basically want you to present an argument, or they want you to either align with what they say or maybe put your point forward. So wherever they're asking you for your perspective, you can always use from my point of view, or you can say I reckon, or you can even say it seems to me that, or you can even start with a basic well, in my opinion. But when they are asking you for your opinion, instead of directly stating कि हाँ I agree with you or I disagree with you, when you include these linking phrases, it actually again shows that you can use language more flexibly. So these are certain phrases that you can use. Now, I hope fluency and coherence is clear. Now, coming to lexical resource. Now, lexical resource is basically how well can you use the language, जैसे कि idiomatic expressions. अब if let's say the examiner has asked you, have you bought something that was very expensive, instead of saying yes, I actually bought something very expensive, you can use an idiom called I bought something which costed an arm and leg. So basically here it actually means that you have actually bought something that was extremely expensive, but you have just used the language more in a more refined way, and this is what the examiner wants to test you on. So under lexical resource, they basically test you in ways whether you can use certain lesser known vocabulary, if you can use idioms more flexibly, if you can at all use, and by when I say flexibly, मेरा मतलब ये नहीं है कि हर एक sentence में आप एक idiom निकाल रहे हो, but it should come natural. Okay, it should not feel like कि आप, just because you've learned something, you're trying to use it. It like a lot of people, they try to use idioms just because they have to use it, but they don't really see the context of it. तो सबसे पहले idioms अगर आप learn कर रहे हो तो उसकी actual meaning के साथ learn करना, and wherever you think जहाँ पे मतलब बिल्कुल ये sit, like it's perfectly fitting like a shoe, then only you use it. Okay, now coming to um basically coming to certain collocations, again, if you can use these collocations wherever you can, like basically you know the difference. For example, we do not say take a decision, we say make a decision, right? We don't say make, or we don't really say um, um, again, we don't say make the risk, we say take. So basically, where you should know where to use what. Whenever we're talking about building, we say build a house. We don't, or we say construct a house. So you should know the exact collocation of the words and then you use it. Okay. Now coming to the next one. The next is your grammatical range and accuracy. Under grammatical range and accuracy, again, there are certain sentences, just a simple sentence, so everybody can use. But what about complex sentences? What about compound sentences? Whether you can actually use language in a way which is less, like it is not really very regularly used. For example, yahan pe, if you see an example, if they ask you, if you had an option to go to a trip, would you go by a car or by plane? Instead of saying I would always choose plane, you could say if I were to choose, I would definitely go by whatever. So here you have used a compound sentence. Or had it not been for, let's say, learning, I wouldn't be here. Or sometimes we use this phrase a lot, I can't be friends with her, let alone being acquaintances. So these are certain phrases, or these are certain sentence structures that are expected out of a test taker who is aiming for a higher band score, where basically what we do is we refine the language. अब थोड़ा सा independent और dependent clause के बारे में आप पढ़ोगे तो you will have an idea कि complex sentence में कैसे हम independent clauses का use करते हैं. Compound sentences में how we actually use two separate sentences and use it with and or as well as, and then we basically change the whole idea of it. So you should be aware of compound, simple and complex sentences. And when, even when we're talking about, let's say, a 9 band score, the examiner does not really want you to have an impeccable English. It is really it goes really, like, you don't really have to say it out loud. But of course, even when you are aiming for a 9 band score, if you clearly look at the rubrics, उसमें भी दिया होता है कि थोड़े बहुत जो errors है, they will always overlook it. So while speaking, if you think that you've made an error, जैसे कि बहुत frequently नहीं होना चाहिए, जैसे आप बोल रहे हो and you realize that okay, I made a mistake over here. Instead of going forward without correcting it, कभी कभी self correction is fine. इसमें क्या होता है कि the examiner would know that okay, fine, this was just a slip of a tongue, and the test taker actually knows the correct thing. But again, make sure कि वो हर sentence में नहीं हो रहा है. Wherever you feel that okay, fine, I have made a mistake, correct it. All right. Now coming to the pronunciation, it is again one of the band descriptors. When we talk about intonation, the voice should not be flat. अगर मैं आपसे बात कर रही हूँ और कोई भी pause नहीं है और मैं बस robot की तरह बात कर रही हूँ, तो you will not really feel that what is that point that I want to emphasize on, or what are certain ways in which I'm beginning my sentence and where am I going to end it, because the examiner does not know where you're actually going to end your sentence, and that's why we use intonation. With the correct information and with the correct intonation, you can actually make your speech more profound. So make sure whenever you're starting a sentence, it has to be always high pitch. But when you are coming to an end, the examiner उसे थोड़ी पता है कि आपका sentence अब खत्म होने वाला है, and also you're speaking in English. So basically, whenever we are trying to end the conversation, we will always go low pitch. और कभी कभी to make it extremely clear कि हाँ इसके बाद मेरा कोई point नहीं होता, we say lastly, we say and. तो इससे एक आइडिया हो जाता है, you basically allude that this is the end of the conversation and I'm not going to include any more points. So correct intonation is actually very important, because the examiner would know where you are ending your talk. They would also know where you are making an additional point. So it's very important for you to use intonation, and also the voice should not fall flat. It should have a high pitch, a low pitch, and then wherever you're trying to end the talk, again always use and lastly, so that it shows that you know where to use. You basically have a control over what you're saying. right? Now coming to pronunciation, always remember कि हमारी अगर आप अगर आप ऐसे कोई रीजनल जगह से नहीं है, जैसे कि people from Kashmir, they speak very differently. People from the north, they speak very differently as opposed to people from south. So if you know that there is the MTI, which is your mother tongue influence, people from the from UP, they again pronounce words very differently. So you should know the regional pronunciation. You should know the standard pronunciation of the words, because अगर आप अपने MTI से वो चीज बोलोगे तो like there's a very high chance the examiner will not be able to comprehend what you were trying to say. And again, because there's going to be a conflict of what your thought was and what the examiner understood, maybe it's going to affect your band score. So these are the four rubrics that are taken, that are considered when the examiner is going to mark you. So make sure that you are very familiar with the rubrics. चाहे सब मत पढ़ो, एटलीस्ट 6 band score और 9 band score को पढ़ लो. इससे आपको एक क्लियर इंडिकेशन हो जाता है कि 6 band score वाले की इंग्लिश कैसी होगी, और इफ आई एम एमिंग फॉर अ हायर बैंड स्कोर तो मेरी इन 4 rubrics में कैसे, what should I do to, let's say, achieve a particular band score. I hope it's all clear. If you have any question about the band score, you can ask. Otherwise, we can proceed. Okay. Any question, any doubt? Let me just see the chat box.
For more than 7 band score, how I should approach?
Can you please come again?
For more than 7 band score, 7 is the minimum requirement. Okay, so
Actually,
how should
6.5 is, but yes.
no, actually for my application 7 is the minimum requirement.
Mm-hmm. So
So
what question?
how should I approach? Like, should I use the complex phrases or I can talk very naturally? Like, what should I do?
If your band score is 7, again it's just a band above the average band score. So इसमें if you use, let's say the examiner asks you something, just always paraphrase the question. Wherever they are asking for your opinion, तो कोशिश करना कि आप सेंटेंस जो है वो वेल से स्टार्ट करो. जहां पे भी आपका ओपिनियन है, यहाँ पे आप बोल दो कि इफ आई वर बीइंग ऑनेस्ट टू यू, और इन माय ओपिनियन, और इफ आई एम बीइंग कंप्लीटली फ्रैंक. इन इस तरीके से डायरेक्टली ना आंसर करके, इफ यू यूज दीज फ्रेजेस naturally again, then of course you should do that. And apart from that, अगर 7 band score है तो कॉन्टेक्चुअली एंड ऑल्सो नेचुरली, अगर आप अपने पूरे कॉन्वर्जेशन में अगर 3 से 4 इडियम्स भी यूज कर रहे हो, 2 से 3 आपने वोकेबलरी यूज कर दी जो लेसन होना है, आई थिंक यू कैन डेफिनेटली गेट इट. बट इफ यू आर समवन जो बोलते टाइम यू मेक अ लॉट ऑफ ग्रामेटिकल एरर्स, या फिर अगर आप बहुत ज्यादा फंबल करते हो, या फिर आपका कोई एक फिलर पैटर्न है, जैसे फॉर मी I have realized that my filler pattern is, if you are someone, I would use this a lot of times, so I have to get away with it. So you should be able to not use these filler patterns too frequently, and then just answer normally. First वाले part में आप 3 से 4 sentences बोल दो, it's more than enough. Second वाले part में any which ways you have to speak for 2 minutes, and for the last part, until the examiner is satisfied with your answer, he or she will ask you more questions. So make sure that you are consistent with your answer, you are not really taking long pauses, and that's about it. And also, the Mayanti, there's no, you don't have to really please the examiner with your answer. जो भी आपको नेचुरली ऐसे लगे कि हाँ मैं इस चीज से अग्री कर रही हूँ और इस पे मैं ज्यादा अच्छे से आंसर कर सकती हूँ, you can have your own point of view. There is no issue with that. So I hope this answers your question. And yes, if you're aiming for a 7 band score, using some idioms is essential.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So let's move forward. We're talking about phrases and how important are phrases in the speaking section. So let me give you some examples of phrases that you can use in the speaking section. Starting off, जहां पे भी आपसे आपका रिस्पॉन्स मांग रहा है, जैसे कि उन्होंने बोला कि a lot of people think like this, what is your response on it. तो जहां पे भी उन्होंने आपसे आपका रिस्पॉन्स, ओके, I hope I'm just going to share the screen again. I hope you can see the screen, everyone. So
Yes.
जहां पे भी they're asking for your response कि आपको अपना response देना है, तो instead of just paraphrasing the question, आप हमेशा ऐसे बोल सकते हो कि from my point of view, in my opinion, personally I believe that, yeah, to be honest, ये सिर्फ तब यूज होगा जहां पे भी उन्होंने आपसे बोला है कि अपना ओपिनियन दो. जैसे कि अगर वो पूछते हैं कि डू यू थिंक एजुकेशन इज इम्पोर्टेंट, दे हैव आस्क्ड फॉर योर ओपिनियन, so you can always say, yeah, in my opinion it is very essential. Or you can say, personally I believe that education is actually very paramount. या फिर आप बोल सकते हो कि from my point of view, yes, education is important. और आप बोल सकते हो, to be very honest, I really think that education is something which holds a lot of significance. और अगर ये सब नहीं याद है तो आप you can just start with, like, instead of simply paraphrasing the question, you can just say, well, education is important. So when you are using these phrases in your response, again, you are showing that I'm not just repeating the question, I have something to add on the table. So these are certain things that you can learn, बट मेक श्योर जब उन्होंने आपसे ओपिनियन मांगा है तभी आप ये फ्रेजेस यूज करोगे. उन्होंने बस आपसे बोला कि व्हाट इज द बेस्ट टाइम टू स्टडी, तो आप यहाँ पे आपको अपना ओपिनियन देने की जरूरत नहीं है. बट अगर जैसे कि, और अगर वो आपसे पूछ रहे हैं कि वेयर डू यू स्टे, तो ऑफ कोर्स आप ये थोड़ी बोलोगे कि इन माय ओपिनियन आई स्टे इन अ हाउस. यहाँ पे आपका ओपिनियन मांगा ही नहीं है. दिस इज अ फैक्चुअल क्वेश्चन. So context is very important. Using these phrases contextually is actually very important. So learn these phrases, but make sure कि आप उसको naturally use कर रहे हो. ऐसा ना हो कि हर sentence में जहाँ पे जरूरत नहीं भी है वहां पे भी आप अपना opinion दे रहे हो. So this is something that you have to do. Now coming to the next one, am I sharing my screen or is it gone?
Sharing.
It is visible,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, perfect. Let me just see the screen. Okay. I can't see the screen. Just give me 1 second. Now, I hope this is clear. Whenever the opinion is asked, you will use this only then. Coming to examples, jahan pe bhi, of course, in the third part of the speaking section, you will have to use examples, right? So instead of just saying, for example, these are certain things that you can use. Ek to hota hai, for instance, right? The next is such as, the next is take for an example, the next one is to illustrate this. To illustrate, I would suggest कि इसको use मत करो ज़्यादा frequently, because again it becomes very formal. Instead, such as आप बोल सकते हो, take dash as an example ले सकते हो. These are more informal ways to give addition to whatever you're saying, to back it up with an example. So for instance, last year I visited Japan and learned a lot about their culture. Maybe they're talking about a foreign trip that you had. So after you give whatever your answer is, you can always use an example to back it up. The next is such as, then take an example and to illustrate this. Again, illustrate is something which is very formal, so don't use it very frequently. However, if you've used all of these phrases and now you don't really know what else to use, then you can definitely use to illustrate. The next is agreement या disagreement. जहां पे भी आपका point of view वो पूछेंगे and where you actually have to take a stance. So instead of saying I agree or disagree, you can always use these. Okay. All right. So instead of using just yes and no, you can definitely cite your examples by saying, let's say, whatever your point of view is, you can either say, I completely agree, or you can say, I totally disagree with this. Or if you are in complete agreement, you can definitely say, I cannot really agree further than this. That means that you are at the extreme of agreement, right? The next is, I see your point, but this is a polite way of bringing in your own opinion. Here, you basically are saying that I completely agree with what you're saying, but to my best experience or to my knowledge, I do not really bind by what you say. So this is a polite way of disagreeing to what the examiner says. And again, while I understand, I think, again, this is another way to pitch in your own point of view. Initially, you are acknowledging the other person's perspective, but then again, you're chiming in your own. So these are certain ways in which you can express your agreement and disagreement. The above two is for your agreement. One more that you can say is I cannot agree further. That again means that you are in total agreement. The last two, third and fourth, is for disagreement. Here you can definitely say I completely disagree with what you say, but again it will come across as a little impertinent, a little rude. So instead of saying I completely disagree, you can definitely say I completely agree to your point, or I see with what you are trying to say, but in my opinion, and then whatever your answer is. So this is again, these are four things that you can use: two for agreement, two for disagreement. Do not directly nullify what the examiner says. There's always a polite way of doing so. Again, in this way, you are not coming across as rude, but you're also able to put forward or put forth whatever your perspective or point of view is. Okay. Now, is there any questions that you have, or is it all clear? Is there anything that you want to ask?
No, ma'am.
All right. Perfect. But remember, these are very essential. I'm not just giving you these examples just because I want to, but because whenever, let's say, if you are aiming for a 5 band score, even if you say the same exact words, it will not really affect much. But for people who want to achieve 7, 8, and 9, these are actually very important. This is how you open your speech. This is how you show that you have proficiency and you are basically understanding the question and you want to pitch in your own point of view as well. Now, coming to speculation or hypothesizing, basically here is where you are giving more to whatever the examiner has asked. Again, here there are certain things that you can say whenever you want to add more point. You can always say additionally. When you want to again, sorry, I was on this slide before. When you're speculating or when you are hypothesizing, basically where we are saying, okay, this is not a situation which can happen in real life. Basically this is something that we imagine, right? It's something which is not really happening at the moment, but hypothetically we think that if this were the case. So I would imagine that it's possible that perhaps is again when you are talking about something which is again not real. We're just talking about, let's say, in hearsay. And then if I had to guess, again, these are again certain words that you can use when you are talking about things that are not happening in real life, but we are talking, let's say, if it happens at all. So these are certain things about future possibilities. If the examiner says that if you, particularly if you go to Canada, what would you do that, or how would your life be? So you can say hypothetically, or if I have to imagine like this, I would say my life is going to be much better. It would be better by 10 folds. These are certain things that you can use. Okay.
Good.
Now, coming to the next one, adding information, we can always say as well as, we can always say additionally, we can say furthermore. Additionally or furthermore, again, are very formal words. We use this primarily when we're talking about or when we are writing our essays. But apart from that, you can use moreover, you can use not only this, but again, this is again an indication of you adding a new point. Jaise ke, if the examiner says, what can you tell me the benefits of drinking water? So you can say, oh, not only it helps in hydration, but it also keeps you full for a really long time. So again, you have given 3 examples or 3 points without even saying 1, 2, and 3, right? So these are, again, this shows that you are proficient, right? So these are certain things that you can do. Now coming to concluding, conclusion is basically when you are ending your conversation. Not all the time do you need to use to sum up or in conclusion. I would suggest you use these first two for your essays, but the third and fourth is what you can use when you are adding the last point. All things considered is basically when we say I'm basically trying to sum up whatever I've said, or ultimately is again another way to end your conversation. Don't use in conclusion or to sum up. Instead, use all things considered and ultimately for your speaking test, and use in conclusion and to sum up when you are writing the essays. Okay. Now coming to expressing your uncertainty. Uncertainty is basically when you're not really sure of something. So let's say if the examiner says, do you think the trend of people using e-dictionary is going to increase? Now you don't really know that whether it's going to increase or decrease, but you still have to give an answer. So here you can say, I'm not really sure whatever the trend is going to be, but in my opinion, I think it's going to increase. So you're not generalizing whatever you think, but you're also giving a clear point of view. So I'm not really sure. It's hard to say. I don't know for certain, but as far as I know, again, as far as my opinion is considered, or as far as I can say, these are certain things that you can use again when you want to express your uncertainty. All right. Do not say maybe, do not say I don't know in all of the answers, because here you have to give a clear point of view. And that's the reason why we give certain openers for you to express whether you are certain about it, whether you don't really know whether this is going to happen or not. So you can use these things when there is a point of contention where you can't really say yes or no. So here these openers come handy. Okay. Now coming to making comparisons, this one is very frequently asked. Okay, sometimes they would ask you to compare um, certain sports or compare the eating habit or the sleeping habit of people. So you can definitely use these openers, these linkers. The first is in comparison. Again, in comparison to last year, this year I actually feel really healthy. In comparison to the last year, this year I actually feel very happy. So when they say, talk about how you have changed as a person. Rajesh, please do not draw on the screen. I'm just going to edit. I'm just going to clear the drawings. Okay, now coming to the next one, it's similarly. Similarly is again when you are talking about similarities. The next one is on the contrary. This one is a good one, okay? If you use on the contrary, you don't really have to use but all the time. So instead of saying but, you can say on the contrary. Or in contrast is also what you can use. But again, this is a very formal language. So on the contrary is something that you can use. Or you can say unlikely, or you can say implausible. The opposite of plausible, which is likely, is unlikely or implausible. So implausibly you can use. So these are certain things that you can use. Again, you will have to see where these linkers are fitting in, and then use it. Don't just use it because you've learned these linkers. It's again imperative to see whether it is sitting right or not. Okay. Now coming to the question, can we use paraphrases, or sorry, can we use phrases to write IELTS writing task 2? A lot of people say that, instead of just paraphrasing the question, can we actually open the question with a nice phrase, with a nice idiom? The answer is you can use phrases. Let's say they're talking about technology. Okay, so they say a lot of people think that technology is here to stay, or the technology is only going to increase in time. If you know a phrase for technology, it's not similar to idioms. Okay, phrases are different. If you use a phrase, or we can say, in today's world where there's cutting edge technology, or you can say technology is increasing by leaps and bounds, right? These are certain things that you can use. These are not proper idioms. Rather, these are certain phrases that are very commonly used. So you can use phrases if you know how to, and actually it will help organize your essays. But again, if you can't think of a phrase at the moment, there is no hassle. You don't really have to think too much. You can just paraphrase the question. But remember, paraphrasing is very important. You can't write the question just how it was in the essay. So make sure that you are paraphrasing, and if you can start with a phrase, that's really good. Now, these are some things that you can use. Let's say if you are introducing the topic, okay? So you can say, again, Rajesh, please don't draw on the screen. All right. So these are certain phrases that you can use. The first is, let's say, when you are initiating the topic. So you can always say, in the recent years, there has been a growing debate about, and then you can paraphrase the question. But remember, it should make sure that there is some or the other illusion of comparison. Okay. Or a lot of times you will say some people think while others think. Instead of saying some people think, you can use it is often argued that, of course, people are going to argue. So you can definitely use this one. When you are trying to state your opinion in the thesis point, you can definitely say, in my opinion, when it's an opinion based essay. If it is a non-opinion based essay, as I've told you, we don't really use personal pronouns. So we say this essay will discuss both views, and then when the essay says discuss both views and then give your opinion, so initially you will say this essay is going to discuss both the views, and then I will provide my own perspective, right? So these are some again phrases that you can use. The next is, how do we organize our body paragraphs? So whenever you are introducing your first main point, you either start with firstly, you say to begin with, you say to initiate with, you say to embark on. And when you are again introducing new reason, okay, instead of saying secondly, you can definitely use another significant factor is, let's say firstly another significant factor is, and then you can speak on the point, or you can write more. So instead of using secondly or moreover, you can use another significant factor, another point to be noted. These are certain things that you can use. Again, now coming to providing examples or evidences, remember that in both the body paragraphs, you need to have some examples or some observation or evidence. If it is an opinion based essay, you can provide your own observation. If it is a non opinion based essay, you can still provide your own opinion, but you can't really say I, me, myself. So there we actually say it is observed or something like that, right? So you can use these words instead of example or for example. You can say for instance, you can say such as, you can say to exemplify. To exemplify is actually a better word for as opposed to the others, because we don't really use this very often. So use to exemplify, or you can say to reiterate, right? Now coming to giving a point of contention, or when you are trying to contrast the points, like let's say advantage and disadvantage, right? So we say on one hand, on the other hand, on one side, on the flip side. We don't say firstly and secondly when we are making comparisons, right? So if it is an advantage and disadvantage kind of essay, causes and effect of a kind of essay. So we basically in the body paragraph, we begin by on one hand, then we say on the other hand. We begin by on one side, we say on the other side. We can even say we have, let's say we have initiated whatever we have written, now we are again proving a point of contention, so we can definitely use however, right? Or you can even say despite this. For example, you can say in the first point you've talked about the advantage of technology. In the next point you can say despite this, it is also considered that technology has its own negatives, and then you can talk about it. So instead of just saying on one hand, on the other hand, you can even say despite this. All right. Now this one is something I believe everybody is well aware of. The first thing, when you are adding more information, we say moreover, we even say additionally, we even say furthermore. But remember, don't use furthermore, additionally, and moreover while you are speaking, because these are most standard written connectors. So, yes, in the essay, you can definitely use it, but while speaking, don't say moreover again. I think I've given you a better way to express any information that you want to add. So, we can say not only this, but as well as, and all of that you can use. Now, when we talk about balancing arguments, these are certain connectors that you can use. While it is true, it is also important to note that in whatever you're saying, again, remember, I'm just giving you a rough outline. How to use it is what you have to figure out. Don't use it everywhere. See if it is contextually sitting well, and you should know the exact meaning of these phrases, and then you use it and it will make more sense, right? So the first is, while it is true, it is also important to know that. For example, let's say you are talking about the benefits of online education. So you can say, while it is true that people believe that online education is very relaxing, it is very comfortable, it is also important to know that it makes people more lethargic. It makes people less people are not really having more concentration in what they are doing. So basically, you are first you're talking about the positives, and then you also pitch in the negative or something that is noteworthy, but in contrast. So you can use this one. Although we should also consider, for example, over here. We're talking about again the benefit of something, but we are also giving the negatives. For example, we can say, although with technology people are gaining more information, but it is noteworthy to consider. It makes people more slower in terms of their brain functions. So you have balanced out both the arguments. When we're talking about advantage and disadvantage, we basically can use it, because remember, either you can talk about advantage in one body paragraph and disadvantage in the other, or you can always talk about one advantage and balance it out with another disadvantage. In the next body paragraph, you talk about another advantage and balance it out with another disadvantage. How do you have to how do you write about it is completely your choice. Either you can have it in separate two blocks, or you can talk about one advantage and counter it with the disadvantage. So again, there is no standard way, but these are two ways in which people write, and both of the ways are correct, right? So now coming to the next one, how to actually use these phrases effectively. I hope till now it's all clear. I hope you've taken a screenshot of all these things, learn how to use them effectively. And these are the ways in which you can get a higher band score, at least higher than 6 or 7. Because when you are talking about 5 and 6 band scores here, if you are just paraphrasing the words and you're just giving your point of view and you're giving an example, it's well enough. But if you want to add more bands, you will have to bring in more flexibility. You will have to bring in more ideation. We have some question. Hashmat, I hope all my condolences are with you. It's okay. Just take care of yourself. And I know it's going to be a difficult time for you, but I just hope that her soul rests in peace. And I hope apart from that, it is all clear. Any questions anyone has, please ask. If you are dubious about anything, you can please ask me. If not, we can definitely move further from this. But remember, when we are talking about these phrases, you have to see whether it is whatever you've been asked. When you are using these phrases, is it actually giving the exact example? Is it actually making a point? Again, don't use it just for the heck of it. Make sure you're using it contextually, and how it will how will that happen? Learn these phrases, okay, learn them with their examples and learn them with their meanings, okay. Just you could have just taken a screenshot of whatever I've showed you and see how to actually use it with context. And once you learn these phrases, it will come naturally to you. Now, how do you use these phrases effectively? The first is you have to practice it regularly. Just by looking at a screenshot once, you will not be able to retain whatever you've read. So make sure you're using it when you're writing your essays. The next is natural integration. Remember, in IELTS, it does not matter what you're saying, right? What matters more is how you're pronouncing it or how you are balancing it out. So make sure whenever you're using these connectors, linkers, phrases, they should sit naturally. It should not feel that you are putting an extra effort to just use it. So that's the reason sometimes what happens is we have said a sentence, now we know a synonym for it, so we say it again. So you don't have to do it. If you have said a sentence once, don't repeat it with a better vocabulary, because whatever you've said it once has already gone into the recorder and you don't really have to keep on correcting yourself. The next is natural integration. It also means that you are not really abusing the words. If you have used one word once, it's fine. The examiner now knows that you use, let's say, instead of saying beautiful, you said it was splendid. Now the examiner has given you a brownie points for using a word like splendid. Now, this does not really mean that in every sentence you're going to use splendid, or in every sentence you're going to say the word bewitching all the time, because again, it will feel that you're trying to just overuse the phrases. So natural integration again is very important. The next is context awareness. Make sure if you are using an idiom, it should mean, and it should mean that you're using it with context. It should not mean that you just used it. For example, we have the idiom hale and hearty. It means really fine, or well and like extremely healthy. If the examiner has asked you a question, do you actually feel that you're not really well at times? Don't say I feel hale and hearty at times. It means that you feel all the, like, at times you feel happy and healthy and whatnot. Here the correct idiom would be, there are times when I feel under the weather, right? So make sure you know the difference between idioms and don't use them inconsequentially, because then, of course, instead of getting a higher band score, you will definitely be pulled down by a band or two. So yes, learning the idioms is very important, but what is more important is that you use it contextually. All right. Now coming to the next one, variety. Make sure that you're using phrases that are different. Okay, even when you're paraphrasing, don't really paraphrase the same thing again and again. And the next is use a mixture of different phrases. What I mean by this is there are going to be a lot of questions like, do you like, let's say, do you like junk food? Do you like going to work out? Or are you an introvert and an extrovert or an extrovert? Instead of just saying, well, in my opinion, well, I think that I am, use the phrases in a more variety. Use whatever you've learned, but make sure again, see whether it's sitting well with your answers or not. Okay. Now, coming to some idioms that you can learn, and these are very commonly spoken idioms. Like we have some idioms that are like standard, जैसे हिंदी में हम बोलते हैं कि हमारी आंखों का तारा, we say that in English as the apple of my eye, right? So this is something which is very commonly used. Or the next is the next one is a cakewalk. We always say this, it's a cakewalk for me. Again, it means it's something which is very easy for me. So these idioms you can use. It does not matter whether you're using very stringent idioms. Yes, if you use lesser spoken idioms like two peas in a pod, jump on the bandwagon, these are some, a bone to pick, dead ringer. These are some lesser known idioms. But if you're using idioms, it's well enough. Okay. Let's say if you're aiming for a higher band score, then you can use a higher or lesser spoken idioms. These are some idioms that you can use. The first is break the ice. It means to start a conversation. You can say she broke the ice with a joke. Basically, she initiated the conversation with a joke. So, in whenever you want to say initiate something, you can say break the ice. But remember, not always you will say break the ice. Sometimes you will even say broke the ice, right? So make sure the grammatical portion is also correct, right? The next is burn the midnight oil. It means to like work really late to achieve something. So you can say, if they say, is there anything that you really worked for? You can say, yeah, for my IELTS exam, I burned the midnight oil. That means that you used to study late at night to crack the examination. The next is hit the nail on the head. This actually means when you do exactly, you know, this basically means that, you know what is causing the problem. So you can say, um, if I find the ramifications of this particular thing, I'm going to hit the nail on the head. Again, this means that you will be able to actually describe the exact situation. The next, bite off more than you can chew. It means that, mismanagement, basically, when you can't really manage certain affairs. So you can say, by taking this project, or by taking the responsibility of something, I think that I bit off more than I could chew. Again, if you change some word, instead of bite, you say bit, make sure you were talking about the past tense, right? Then I told you in the beginning itself, cost an arm and a leg, it means something which is very expensive. So instead of saying, oh, it's very expensive, you can say it will cost an arm and a leg. The next is let the cat out of the bag again. This is something which we very commonly use. It means that when you reveal a secret, right? Or we even say birds of feather flock together. That means people of the same habit, they are always together. Or you can even say a man is known by the company he keeps. Again, this is something, a phrase that is very commonly used. Oh, there's one more. A friend in need is a friend in need is a friend indeed. Again, learn these idioms; they are going to come handy. Now, this is something that as a model answers. The first is let's say this one again, a very commonly asked question. It's what do you do in your free time? Ab isme, instead of saying in my free time, you can always say leisure time, right? Or whenever I'm not doing anything, I like to read books. This is again, you're using synonyms, but it is all contextual. Then a lot of times they would ask you, are you an introvert or an extrovert? Are you an indoor person or an outdoor person? Do you like to stay at house or do you like to go out? This is a model answer that you can learn. Do you like cooking? Instead of saying, yes, I love cooking, you can say, I'm really fond of preparing my own meals. Again, this means the same thing, but you have just used paraphrasing, you have just used synonyms, and just by doing this, you can get a high band score, right? So these are certain things. Now coming to the second part, which is your cue card round. इस तरीके के questions you can expect. हमेशा you will have the main topic on the like at the beginning you will have the main topic, and then there are going to be certain bullet points that needs to be there while you talk. For example, यहाँ पे क्या है, describe a memorable event from your life. You should say, that means these are certain points that you have to cover. What was the event? When did it happen? Who was there? And explain why was it memorable. Now you can definitely talk about a trip, or you can talk about your birthday party. If you're married, you can talk about your wedding day, or you can talk about your anniversaries or something like that. See, these are certain standard answers that you can give, and you don't really have to come with a phenomenal idea. Something which is basic but you can speak on it is something I would suggest you speak on. And at all, if this happens that you don't have a memorable idea or you don't have a memorable event, now here you definitely have to come up with a story. But make sure when you are going to be asked more questions about it, don't hesitate, don't fumble, because then it would mean that you don't really know what to answer. Okay, any questions or any doubts? Is it all clear? All right, so this is a model answer. Again, it has some idioms. If you want, you can take a screenshot or learn them. And with this, we are done with today's session, how to incorporate idioms. And we also have Raza sir with us now. So, hi, sir. You can take over from here.
Hi, Azra. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I hope you guys are doing very well. First of all, thank you very much for joining and your support, guys. We are having our live sessions on daily basis, and I'm sure it helps a lot of people who are, preparing for IELTS or struggling with IELTS preparation. Okay, so I hope you like today's topic as well. It's about the idioms and what Azra ma'am give the session that something means a lot, and it indicates basically, guys, for having good command over the idioms, you need to understand the meaning first. Okay, so before using any idiom, make sure you guys clearly understand its meaning and the context. Okay, what I mean to say, basically, let me just give you one example, right? So there's a term called hit the books. This is very, uh, very common idiom in IELTS. So some people, some students, they have some different, kind of observation, or they believe that hitting a book, something, you're really hitting with the books. No, it is something, start studying seriously. Okay. So you should know the understanding of the idioms very well. This is one thing. This is number one. And what I really like to suggest one more thing, which is very important, that guys should select the natural idioms, because there are numerous idioms, right, in English language or in IELTS. Let me give you one example. Like, you use idioms that should be very, naturally, right? You should not look like you are forcefully using the idiom. Let's take one example. So I have seen a lot of students, they used idioms which is not relevant. Let's take one example. I'm over the moon because I go to school every day. So this is something unnatural. This is something, forcefully, right? You use idiom forcefully. And when you say, when I passed the IELTS exam because I was over the moon, it looks more compatible. Okay. So you should, guys, know how to use the idioms. That is the main thing. And yes, we are having live sessions as we discussed earlier, and we have a demo as well where you can interact with the Azra ma'am or me and take a free demo where you get more clarity about it. Okay, and whomsoever having any kind of any concerns, any any doubt, or wants to give a mock test, we provide mock tests as well. If someone is confident enough and having, full of confidence that this they are doing very well and they are going to break the leg of IELTS in the very first attempt, so they can go with us for the mock test. So where we can give them the band prediction as well. All right, Azra. I hope that will really make a good meaning to all of the students over here. And we have tomorrow we have a live session, same time as we having a sessions on daily basis, 4 to 5. And tomorrow's session is very important. We going to discuss about the mistakes to avoid in speaking and writing task, where we going to discuss some common mistakes in speaking and writing task, generally students do in speaking and writing section, and some detailed tips on pronunciation, fluency, grammar, and coherence. So this will be a tomorrow's discussion. And yeah, anyone have any query, concerns, please feel free to ask. We are happy to answer. Anyone having any query, any concern, any question related to today's session, or anything related to IELTS, or want to give any suggestions or any feedback?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Asa, I think we are done for today. So
Right.
let's correct tomorrow, guys. Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.